Hello everyone and greetings from the Tagus Estuary in Lisbon. We're currently looking at the 25th of April bridge and the Christ the King statue. This red suspension bridge often draws comparison to the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and the Christ the King statue also draws comparisons to the Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro. We're in Lisbon to watch our second match on this channel as Sporting Lisbon take on Boavista in the Portuguese Premier Division. We're here the evening before the game, so we're taking an evening stroll and we're going to show you various things along the waterfront. This area is slightly further afield than some of the other main tourist spots in Lisbon, so it's great to get this all done in one evening. What we're currently looking at is the Monument to the Discoveries, inaugurated in 1960 on the 5th centenary anniversary of the death of Henry the Navigator. A short walk further on takes us to the Belém Tower. This was very impressive, and by this point nightfall had well and truly struck, so it was completely illuminated by some lights surrounding it. It's impressive to see, and you can see why it's one of the top rated things to do in Lisbon. It was slightly smaller than I potentially expected, but it didn't make it any less impressive, and this beach in front of it was quite popular, and it was still a tourist place even though it was so late into the evening, and even though this is slightly further out of the city than some of the other tourist attractions. Walking back to end the whistle stop evening tour, we walked past Geronimo's monastery, which was very impressive. Hello sir. And from there we went to one of the locations I most wanted to go to. Now this place is famed for their patis del nata, which are the custard filled tarts. We had one of them each. It was about €1.10, which I don't think for a tourist trap is particularly bad. I may have gone slightly over the top with the cinnamon and ice and sugar though. From here it was a short bus journey to the famed Pink Street, which was a lively nightlife area. There was live music going on, lots of bars, that type of thing. But it was also very close to the Time Out Food Market, which was where we went. There's plenty to see in here. There was so many different food options and what have you. I will be quite honest, I found Lisbon to be quite cheap with the exception of this food market, but then you know when you're coming to a place like this, you're not going to get the cheapest food that there is. There's a great variety from sort of Michelin-starred chefs and famous chefs down to sort of the more typical food stall things. And once we'd been here for a bit, it was time to head back home ready for tomorrow. The next morning we went on a walk to quite a few viewpoints. This was the first one that we saw that really impressed us. There was quite a few steps up to it, but once we were here the view was well worth it. It was very touristic, but you know, a number of people are often at these touristy places for a reason. So we've got a view here of the castle. We're panning around and can see it's quite a foggy day. You've got the Christ the King statue over there, the 25th of April bridge, and then you just get a view of the city as a whole. It was very relaxed up here, but there was a lot of tourist and sort of coach trips, that type of thing. There was also a gentleman playing live music, and that was very nice, and I believe that they were sort of original songs. From here we headed to the Grassa viewpoint, and the viewpoint itself I felt wasn't as good as the last one we'd been to, but inside there was also this, I believe, church that was being renovated. It was very impressive to sort of see, and just something different and completely free to get into. We then walked up to the castle, didn't pay to get in, so just had a wander around the streets, and then saw the famous trams on the way to our next viewpoint, which again was another viewpoint. It is, to be honest, for me, I felt like the city of viewpoints and squares. Not that's a bad thing, but this one was quite nice. It was very different over the estuary. You've got the houses over here, and then, you know, just a nice view of the water. I'm a big fan of the water, so particularly like this one. If you're not, probably stick to the other ones where there's more built up. We then went to see Lisbon's Roman Catholic Cathedral. It's a fairly small one, 90 metres by 40 metres by 12 metres, and it was designated a cathedral in 1907. We're now at Commerce Square with a nice view of the statue and the bridge again in the fog. We're panning around and get a view of the arch behind us. Now, while I did quite like this, it was by far the most touristic area. There was quite a few people offering to sell us drugs and stuff. I don't look at all like I would be interested in drugs. I don't know why they came to me. I look about as square as anyone could be. Also, we sat by this statue for about 5 seconds, which was lovely, and then realised it sort of stank of wee. So the joys of that meant that we then moved on. So we went through the arch and headed up Rua Augusta. We bypassed the Santa Justa lift because I didn't think it was worth justifying the price and paying for that personally, and instead we headed here to the Dom Pedro Square. As you can see, there was a wavy flooring which made a nice change from the flooring you often get in these types of squares. This was our favourite square in Lisbon, with the fountains either side, the statue in the middle, and we sat here for a little bit before we headed up to grab some lunch along this particularly nice street, and we went to get some pizza and ate it by another viewpoint. The pizza wouldn't have necessarily been our first choices, but it was on Too Good To Go, which is a food waste app, and we got it for €5, which was ridiculously cheap for the amount of food we got, so that was lunch done on a budget. While maybe not my favourite viewpoint, again, we've got a nice view of the castle and some of Lisbon beneath us. Now, we couldn't come to Lisbon and not do a tram, and I'd seen this incline tram on the way up to the viewpoint earlier. This was included in our public transport 24-hour pass and looked like the quietest tram that we had seen. Decided to wait until after our food and jumped onto it, and by that time it was even quieter, which was great. It was great to see and really interesting. It was about a 2-minute ride, which for free wasn't bad at all. There was some interesting street art which was being worked on as we went down, and the views to the front were also quite impressive. Nothing that was as impressive as some of the viewpoints we'd seen, but well worth it if you also want to save some steps after a long day of walking. Now on to the fun bit of the trip, convincing Jen to go to her first ever game of football with me. This wasn't as difficult as I thought it might be. A very simple tram ride would mean that we were there, so she didn't have too long to change her mind. This was an 8:30 kick-off on a Sunday evening, and due to earlier results, this meant that we were watching 4th place Sporting Lisbon take on 9th place Boavista. The stadium being so easily accessible by public transport and the public transport not being overly cramped or awkward to get is a massive benefit for me. Quite often in England, sporting events are serviced by public transport that's either not frequent enough or is just too cramped, and it makes the whole event start on an uncomfortable note. And there it is, the first view of the Jose Alvade Stadium. This is the club's 7th stadium and was opened in 2003 to coincide with the Euro 2004 being awarded to Portugal and the club looking to modernise their stadium anyway. The capacity is just over 50,000, and I believe that the record capacity isn't far off that. I attended this match on Sunday the 13th of March, which was the next fixture after they'd drawn 2-2 with Arsenal in the Europa League round of 16. That match was attended by Fogden, so I'm sure that Sporting Lisbon fans were delighted they'd been graced by the presence of 2 of the finest in the YouTube vlogging scene. Now, the plan originally was to try and have some bafana and beer before the match with some of the local fans, but I wasn't exactly sure where to go for this, and also didn't want to risk getting murdered in Lisbon with a camera, so decided that instead we'd take the safer route with Jen. So walked inside and saw a Burger King inside the stadium, slightly unusual but not that weird. What was very weird was to see a Lidl inside of the stadium. Obviously very popular with fans, but yeah, it caught me slightly by surprise as I'm far used to lower league grounds. There was also a food court just round the corner, but nothing too special there, just a generic food court with a few different food options. This was my first overseas football match since before the COVID pandemic, so I was like a child at Christmas wanting to get in. Jen's first football match wasn't looking like it was going to be a success. She didn't look too interested. My viewpoint was that if we got our ticket scanned and walked in, once she was inside the stadium, she'd either get swept up by the atmosphere and really enjoy it, or realise how difficult it would be to get out of the ground and just begrudgingly sit there for the rest of the match. Once we were inside, I went over to the food stall to get myself the bafana that I'd been looking for the whole time we'd been in Lisbon, and as we were flying out in the morning, it was the last chance to get it. The food prices weren't awful, and I wouldn't say were fantastic. I got a bafana, a drink, and a thing of crisps for €7.20 as part of the deal. And just like that, it was time to make it to our seats. We were sat in sector A17 and we were 6 rows back behind the goal. I think these were amazing seats, especially for the price that we paid, and I'll give an overview on the price at the end of the video. I was impressed by the stadium and thought once we were inside, Jen must be too. So I took a quick glance around to see how much she was taking in, and she was just playing with it there. Time for some food, and the bafana was covered in mustard, and I would say it was a solid sandwich, about 7 out of 10. And before you know it, the players are out on the pitch. I've heard great things about the atmosphere at sporting games. Let's hope it lives up to it. noting, that was the whistle for the game kicking off. And with the singing still going on, we've got our first chance of the game. Not quite sure how that didn't manage to go over the line, but a great start for Sporting. Another decent chance. This could be a long evening for Boavista. Sporting are in complete control of the start of this game, they just can't deliver that decisive blow. Another great opportunity for them here. Will this be the breakthrough? No. This game did contain a potential Puskas winner, and here's my view of it. Yes, that is right, your video didn't jump. I accidentally pressed stop recording when a potential Puskas goal was scored directly in front of me from an angle that I don't believe anyone else has recorded. The joys of this being the first ever video I filmed. To describe it to you, Nuno Santos scored a Rabona from the edge of the box. I'll put a video to it in the description, and you're more than welcome to view it there, and I'll strongly suggest you do. It was a great goal and very good to see live, albeit I didn't catch it on the camera. 17 minutes gone, 1-0 Sporting. To give you a gauge of Jen's interest in the match, I turned to ask her what she thought of the goal, and she said she wasn't watching because she was listening to a podcast. Sporting's intensity remained high even after scoring the goal, and they were causing a lot of problems for the Boavista defence, especially down either of the flanks. Here, another drive into the box and a good clearance away. However, even when Boavista managed to get cleared, as you'll see from this short passage of play, they weren't able to do anything with it. It was relentless pressure from Sporting and something that Boavista just couldn't keep up with. Again, down the flank and causing more problems for the defence, taking two, Marcus Edwards managing to get through, and a potential penalty claim. This wasn't given, but the fans were incensed and booed the defender involved every time he touched the ball for the remainder of the half. Nearing half-time, some more trouble coming from down the flanks, a great ball over his head, a great chance for a volley on the edge of the area and straight at the keeper. As half-time approaches, the intensity doesn't drop, and a great finish here by the defender into his own goal. Now, you could say this was quite unfortunate for Boavista, but on the balance of the half as a whole, I would say 2-0 was still quite generous. It's unfortunate for the defender involved, and I'm sure he'll get a bit of a grilling at half-time from the manager, but all of the team deserves it for the performance they've put in so far. A good view of the small number of ultras opposite us who were celebrating the goal and waving the flags, and generally creating a great atmosphere throughout the game as a whole. And just like that, the half-time whistle goes. 2-0 Sporting, a very successful first half, and a great first half for me of Portuguese football. Let's ask the main judge of this, the person who's attending their first game ever, and see what her thoughts are. Opinions on a first ever football game? There we go, love it. It may have been said tongue-in-cheek, but I'm taking it. Now, this game's potentially slightly different to my first vlog in that I didn't go around the stadium as much. I feel that if you wanted that, you can find it with these bigger clubs, so I wanted to focus more on the pitch and my experience as a fan. This is my third match abroad and the third time watching an English midfielder run riot. First time Jadon Sancho, this time Marcus Edwards, and the third time Lee Catamol at Venlo. I say Lee Catamol tongue-in-cheek, but he did actually seem to be quite a big fan favourite. And as the second half approaches, everyone in the stadium's attention turns back to the football. Bar one. The action this half is all down the other end, and just like that, another strong penalty shout. Quite a few people are claiming it, not given again. The great thing about being behind the goal is if all of the attacks come into your end, you get to see all of the action. If, however, this game is as one-sided as this game is, unfortunately, you potentially miss a lot of the action if you sat at the wrong end, and I feel that may be the case for the second half. As the ball goes out of play, the fans definitely let the referee know what they think of the decision not to give the penalty. As I say, all of the action really is at the other end, but it would be unfair to say that Boavista had no chances whatsoever. A sloppy bit of play in the middle of the park by Sporting initially, but with that said, there was some great last-ditch defending and a good clearance off the line to make up for it and keep it 2-0. They're still firmly in control of this game. With that said, Boavista are starting to get a few more chances. No attacking players anywhere near that one though. Now at this point my camera died, the joys of not thinking to bring a charger with me. As I say, while this video's gone up after the Barrytown video, this is the first video I ever filmed, but the Sporting fans now clearly feel confident enough to light a flare. This video was filmed on my iPhone, no idea why it's gone into the weird slow-mo, but as you can see, a flare's been lit. The first time I've actually ever seen one in person, so mildly impressed. Jem was far more worried about the safety of people around, so two slightly different viewpoints I suppose. Capacity's at about 55% at 27,500 this evening. It was very easy to get a ticket, and maybe it being a late Sunday fixture is part of the reason why, or it could just be fairly easy to get a ticket anyway. Now, I wasn't originally going to upload this video because of how shaky it is and stuff when I filmed it with the camera, but I thought why not add it to the vlog. If people don't like it, they can turn off at this point. Now it is worth sticking around because there is another goal in this game, but it is on this camera, so to be very honest with you, it's not the best video in the world. Now if you're still watching, I just want to say thanks ever so much. The support means a lot. I do this because I enjoy doing it, but I will be uploading, and if people like the content I'm putting out there, that's brilliant. If you could give it a like and subscribe if you do, that'd be brilliant, but no problem whatsoever if not. Most of the content I am putting out will be the A to Z challenge, which will be UK based, but I will potentially be doing some things overseas and what have you as well. If there's any potential ideas, then please do let me know and I'll be more than happy to look into it. Now as we come to the closing stages of the game, there's one final chance, and as you can see, I did capture the goal. How well I captured it is very questionable. A goal for Paulinho in the 93rd minute put the cherry on top of a fantastic performance. The full-time whistle was pretty much seconds away, but the fans were in great voice, enjoying their 3-0 victory. It doesn't move them any further up the table. It looks like they're probably going to finish the season in 4th, looking at the table now. Just the gap beneath them's quite big and the gap above them's quite big, so they're probably not going to make that up. So now to go over the cost per person. The cost of the 24-hour public transport ticket was €6.60. The cost of the food in the stadium was €7.20 for the sandwich, the crisps and the drink. The cost of the ticket, 6 rows back in the Portuguese Premier Liga, was €19. So in total, €32.80 or about £28.80, exclusive of flights and accommodation, which I don't think's bad at all. I had a great day. When I asked Jen her thoughts, she said, "I'm glad you had a good time," so I don't think she'll be back. But I certainly would be. Getting back was very easy. We walked onto the first metro after the game, and this is how busy it was. See you next Wednesday.